Hello, this is the backup video for ancient and medieval history for Monday. Monday, the 21st of September, 2020. Okay. Where we left things. You guys were chronicling the story of the Jews of the diaspora in Europe. That is what we spent our time on Friday in the lecture. Why are they dispersed as small minorities in other people's countries, as proverbial strangers in a strange land? Because in 134 AD, the Emperor Hadrian, after the Bar Kokhba rebellion, kicked them out. They scattered them. No Jew could live within 50 or 100-mile radius, I don't remember, of Jerusalem. So massive numbers of Jews, and basically throughout Judea, Jews are hunted down. They're not allowed to live there anymore. They are cast out of their homes. And so Jews have to find a new way of living. And they do so as strangers in a strange land. They have the problem of retaining their identity while at the same time trying to fit in enough to survive in their host society. Now, all first-generation immigrants, or Ise, have this problem. On the one hand, they are of the old country, and as such, they are going to speak the language and naturally follow the customs of whatever homeland they're from. However, the host society has every right to expect from any immigrant that they learn their language, they learn their customs, and they try to fit in, and that they be loyal to their new country rather than their old. We have a right to expect that of any legal immigrant that comes here, and we have, just as the host societies that the Jews lived in. To be an individual is to be indecent. Jews stood out. How and why did they stand out? Well, we talked about this on Friday. So I'm going to roll the dice and ask you to come up with examples of how the Jews stood out. And you roll, please. That doesn't count because it's not on the table. You're number one. Let's try it again. 11. Okay, don't ever roll like that in a casino. They'll chop your fingers off. I'm joking. It's fine. 11. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Oh my God, that's fair. You rolled yourself. 11. So the question is, what are some of the things that Jews did that stood out from the people of their host societies? Yeah.
I actually lost connection on Friday, so I was not able to watch the video.
Okay.
So that's a problem.
I'm going to ask you to take a wild guess then.
Okay.
If you have the problem, by the way, the Pilgrims had this problem when they were in Holland. If you had a problem like this, you wanted to keep yourself unique, but at the same time you have to fit in. What are some of the things that the host people are going to point out about you, the immigrant who hasn't fully assimilated yet? What are some things that would probably stand out about you?
Probably like certain traditions they follow, such as not eating certain foods or the way they dress.
Yeah, both. Excellent. Thank you. Does anyone wish to add to that? Miss?
Because they eat different foods, they smell different.
Yes, that is something that's really hard to imagine, but it's true. Body chemistry reflects diet, among other things. And if your diet is significantly different from the people around you, you're going to smell different. And smell is one of those things, it's not a conscious thing. It goes directly to the reptile part of our brain, and we tend to react against it. There's this sense that they're unclean. No, they're not unclean. They just have a different body odor. And in a society where everyone sweats and very few people bathe regularly, that matters. Did you have something else?
No.
Okay. So the Jews, they look differently because they dress differently. The Orthodox and the Hasidim have the forelock. They smell differently. They keep to themselves. In order to preserve their faith, they tend to live in self-imposed ghettos, which means they tend to live together. like in Chinatowns or in Little Italies, but they're Jewish neighborhoods, and then they commit the real sin. They become, on average, more successful than the people around them because the Jewish parents push their kids to succeed at school and to get training in all sorts of skills. And by doing so, they become, on average, more money oriented, more affluent than the people around them. Add to that, what is it about banking that's so difficult for a Christian of Europe? Will you slide down just a little bit as you answer?
Um, isn't it like against the religion position?
Yeah. The medieval Christian church, by the way, it changes its mind during the Renaissance, but the medieval Christian church says, you cannot loan money at interest. If Zoe has money and I need money, and I go to her and I ask for $20,000, what she can do is she can choose out of the goodness of her heart to loan me $20,000 and I will pay her back $20,000. That's Christian charity. She could also choose to loan me $10,000 and give me $10,000. That's Christian charity beyond and above the call. But if Zoe wants to be a banker, she's not going to make a living doing that. A banker has to charge interest. So if I borrow $20,000 from you, you are going to expect within 10 years that I'll pay it back with compound interest, which means I'll end up paying you about $30,000 over a 10-year period. That's made you a tidy profit of $10,000. It's 50% of what you loaned. That's how you make money in banking. But a Christian can't do that because it's the mortal sin of usury. And the church will punish you and God will send you to hell. So don't do that. So who ends up, did you have your hand up?
No.
Okay. So who has the ability to be bankers in Christian communities?
Jews.
The Jews. Yeah. So now you have Jews that are not only on average more successful than the people around them, not only do they look and act differently, but they're bankers. So you got to go to them for loans and ask them, which is an embarrassing and humiliating experience. And unfortunately, human beings bite the hand that feed us. We don't necessarily react the way we should. Morally and ethically, if somebody is willing to take a chance on us, remember this the first time or the next time you get hired. I remember when I was a teenager, and a lot of my friends, and I did too when I was immature in this way, we tended to slack at work and get away with whatever we could. I quickly learned that that is just wrong. My employer took a chance on me. My employer gave me an opportunity to earn money honorably by doing work. I owe that person loyalty. And loyalty doesn't mean slacking. Loyalty means giving the best I can when I'm on the clock. It means showing up 15 to 20 minutes early every day. It means staying a little late every day to make sure that everything is okay. That's what you should do. If somebody chooses to hire you over someone else, they are giving you a chance, and that is something that deserves loyalty. If somebody loans you money when they don't have to, really helps you out, that's also a moral gift. But people don't react the way they should a lot of the time. They get angry about it. They get resentful. Oh, that guy's all money. And then you end up, you're not allowed to be prejudiced in our society anymore. And that's generally a good thing, except for the hypocrisy of people who say, I'm not a racist, but I want a day without white people on my college campus. I'm not a sexist, but patriarchy must fall. It's sort of racist and sexist in both cases. But the one prejudice that people are allowed to openly practice in our society outside of the colleges and universities is envy and hatred of the rich. We're allowed to think, oh, those people, they're such hoity-toity. They're born with a silver spoon. They inherited all their worth. They got their wealth by taking advantage of people. No, their families got wealth by producing goods and services that people need and people want. And they earned their profits fairly. And the companies that produce things today, nobody has to go and buy a Coca-Cola. Nobody has to go to McDonald's. Nobody has to watch a Disney movie. You choose to do those things if you want to because you enjoy the product. That's value for money. That's fair. The people of Europe began to hate the Jews because of their wealth, perceived wealth, because of their success, perceived success, because they had to ask them for money, because they look differently, act differently, smell differently, and because they keep to themselves. They don't like their daughters marrying the sons of non-Jewish people because the faith is carried through the mother. So all of this together creates a cocktail of mighty inhalation that the Jews are going to be dealing with for their entire time as minorities in Europe. There is still vestiges of this today, particularly in places like Hungary. There are, and in France, there are pockets of open anti-Semitism. Anti-Semitism is an irrational and unfair hatred of the Jews. And it is a particular type of hatred and evil that goes back thousands of years. So, the great historian of the final solution, Raoul Hilberg, Jewish scholar, says that all anti-Semitism can be summarized in 3 statements, and as under one statement, second statement, or third statement. The first statement, you may not live as one of us. You may not live as one of us. So, what does that mean? Well, let's say we're in Hamburg, Germany, or Paris, France, and we are next door neighbors. And you're Jewish and I'm not. Your family could have come to Hamburg or Paris 500 years ago when it was still a little village. My parents could have shown up here 40 years ago. But I'm German, French, you're not. Because I am of German stock, you're Jewish. Judaism is seen by Europeans and people in the Old World in general, not as a religion as much as an ethnic group, as a racial group. Jews are a nation of people, like Germans, Frenchmen, and others, who simply don't have a country of their own until Israel is restored. So you can be residents of a city for hundreds of years. Your family could be around for 1,000 years. But you're not really one of us. You look different. You act different. You don't assimilate properly. There's the horrible story of blood libel. The lie that to make matzah, which is unleavened bread, which is necessary for Passover, which we've talked about. That's when the angel of death passes over as part of the escape from Egypt, the Exodus. The legend is, the lie is, the blood libel, that you need the blood of a Christian child or a non-Jewish child. In Islamic countries, they say you need the blood of a Muslim child. So whenever a child goes missing, and here's one of the horrors of human life, children always go missing. In every society that's ever been, in our society right now, there are missing children. And that's a horror show for everyone involved, family, friends. Child that just disappears off the face of the earth. In some ways, it's even worse than the child dying, because the child dying is at least closure. It's horrible closure, but it's closure. But a missing child, they could be alive. They could be being tortured. They could be being horrible things happening to them. You don't know. And into that cocktail of misery comes the blood libel. So when children go missing, there are often small-scale pogroms against the Jews. There are times when Jews are required to wear special clothing. For example, a certain shade of yellow, a bright yellow star or scarf if you're a female, so that you can spot a Jew just like that. So that you're never in a position, if you're a young heterosexual guy, of going, wow, Look at her. She's beautiful. I'd love to date her. And then only later, after you've spent time on her, you find out she's Jewish. Oh, can't have that. So if she wears the scarf, the yellow scarf that identifies her as a Jewess, you don't have to waste your time. You can just go, Jew. You have a guy walking around with a Jewish scarf or a Jewish star. Jew. You don't see them as an individual. You see them as a member of a group.
I was gonna say, didn't they do something that was pretty much identical to that during World War II?
Yes, the Nazis revived that custom. Like, they revived so many anti-Semitic customs, but that first started in the Middle Ages. You're right. You may not live as one of us. And what that means is the sense of community that should exist between people. We're neighbors. We have a common interest in making sure our city doesn't fall apart. We're neighbors. We have a common interest in helping each other out in times of need. Because if you need help and I'm there to help you, when I need help, presumably you'll be there to help me. We can work with one another. We can trust one another. We are of the same tribe. None of that is true if you think of Jews who live in your communities, who are part of them. They're they own the shops where you shop. They own the tailor shop where you get your clothes mended. They own the bank where you go and get money. None of that sense of shared identity or community is possible if you see them as, they're just a Jew. Yellow star, yellow scarf. You may not live as one of us. That's the first step in anti-Semitism. And a lot of people stop there. They just don't think of Jews as Unsers, as one of us. The second stage, you may not live among us, comes naturally from that. Why on earth should we have an alien community in our midst that will not assimilate beyond a certain point? Why would we put up with it? Especially when there's a chance they could be behind all the missing children, especially when they are so obnoxiously different. So what we're going to do, first off, is we're going to restrict Jews. In the Middle Ages, there were certain jobs Jews were not allowed to do. There were certain professions Jews couldn't enter. You're not going to have many Jewish noblemen, because all of noble oaths are by the Lord God Almighty, His Son Jesus Christ, and the Holy Spirit. In nomine Patris et Filius et Spiritus Sancti. That doesn't happen when you have Jews. So, I'm going to turn the air conditioning down so people are not being frozen out. Though I do kind of like it cold. Remember that. Bring a sweater, especially as we get closer to winter. Today's the first day of fall. Happy autumn. It's the autumnal equinox. Supposedly equal amounts of sunlight and darkness. So, with all of that said, when you have anti-Jewish laws that prevent Jews from owning certain types of property or doing certain types of work, it's not far to say, okay, here's our city. Our city's by a river. We've got an island, and we've got a bridge, another bridge, and we've got sort of city on both sides of the river, all walled off with gates. Now, in our city, the prevailing winds are from west to east, in a good northern hemisphere place. So the prevailing wind comes like this. So what we're going to do is we're going to set up our stinky industries down here. Our glue factories, our dyeing works, all the stuff that produces foul air and foul water. So that the wind usually blows out of town and doesn't disturb us in other places. Now, where are we going to put the Jews? Let's make a ghetto. Ghetto in the United States is synonymous for slum, but it's not really. A ghetto is a medieval term for a walled-off Jewish neighborhood. It's a medieval term for a walled-off Jewish neighborhood. So what we're going to do is we're going to build a wall around this neighborhood here. And we're going to have one or two gates. Let's just say one gate. So all of the Jews are going to be required by law to live within this ghetto. That didn't come. Can I ask a favor? You in the corner? Would you be kind enough, please, to throw that away? Thank you. Good catch. So all Jews in town, all Jews in our nice little city, have to live here within the ghetto. Could be the richest guy in town. You got to live in the ghetto. In the ghetto. You have to be in the ghetto by a certain hour, like by sunset. All Jews need to be home by sunset. They're going to close the gates. If we catch you Jews outside of the ghetto after dark, we're going to beat on you. And there were groups of young men who were looking for trouble. Maybe they were drunk, maybe they were angry. And if they caught a Jew because of the special clothing or just because they recognized old Rosenstein over there, they'd beat the living heck out of him. Maybe they'd kill him. Usually not. Usually they just humiliate him and wound him. So Jews have a walled off area within the city that's just theirs. The only other thing that's walled off in medieval cities within the city is the university. We're going to talk about why the university is walled off sometime later. The Jews are kept separate. You may not live among us. Now, as we get to modern times, in Germany, after the National Socialists took over in 1933, just 2 years later, they set up the Nuremberg Laws on race. And the Nuremberg Laws on race restrict Jews in all sorts of ways. First of all, Jews are no longer citizens of the German Reich. They are subjects. They've lost their citizenship. Jews no longer have the ability to serve in the military, to be lawyers. Jews cannot be teachers in schools, corrupting the minds of the young. Jews are not allowed to live in certain neighborhoods. And Jews have a maximum amount of wealth that they're allowed to control. Anything above that is immediately confiscated or has to immediately be sold. Immediately is the key. Now, Hitler had many faults, but corruption of that kind wasn't one of them. Hitler really wasn't about getting rich. His thing was power. But the men around Hitler were very corrupt. And most Nazi leaders, when the Nuremberg Laws were first promulgated, would go to the Jews of the areas where they had property, and they would basically force the Jews to sell something at a tenth of its value, a fifth of its value, 1% of its value, and the Jews had no choice. These guys were the Nazi party. They were the ones that were going to decide whether the Jew was going to obey or not. So suddenly Jews lose their homes, they lose their property, they lose their businesses, they lose their livelihood if they're professionals. They're not even citizens anymore, they're subjects. So they've lost their status as fully existent legal human beings. And as the Nuremberg laws continue, year by year, the laws are tightened up. Jews are not allowed to be doctors to Christian patients. A Jewish man caught alone with a Gentile woman is presumed to be a rapist unless he proves himself otherwise. Some Jews were beaten, castrated, or killed because they had been found alone with Gentile German women. Jewish marriages are annulled. Oh, how do you determine who's a Jew? This is one of the horror shows of the United States coming to visit Germany. When setting up the Nuremberg laws, the Nazis looked at the Jim Crow laws of the American South. And the way that southern states determined who was black is if you have a single black grandparent or more than one black grandparent, then you are considered to be Negro. So if you have a single Jewish grandparent or more than one Jewish grandparent, you are legally a Jew. You could be blonde-haired, blue-eyed, cream-skinned. You could love Germany. You could, except for the anti-Semitism, you could sympathize with National Socialism. But if you have a single Jewish grandparent, you're Jewish. It's birth determined, not choice. So you may not live as one of us. You may not live among us. Now we come to the third and most extreme case of anti-Semitism. You shall not live. You shall not live. When a child goes missing, when a plague happens, when a fire occurs, when some other kind of natural, inexplicable disaster happens, why do bad things happen to good people? Why do good things happen to bad people? Why do children die young? What a horror show to have a child die before their parents. When life happens and people are hollowed out by grief, anti-Semitism can take hold. The word pogrom is a Russian word, P-O-G-R-O-M. A pogrom is an officially sanctioned anti-Jewish riot. A pogrom is an officially sanctioned anti-Jewish riot. A pogrom is an officially sanctioned anti-Jewish riot. So, the Jews were scattered. Many of them ended up in Spain and Portugal under the Muslims. However, when the Muslims were kicked out in 1492, remember, Queen Isabella was spending blow money on victory in Spain to send Christopher Columbus out on his expedition. One of the things she did was expel the Jews. Most of the Jews in the world between the 1600s and 1941 were located in Poland, in the Ukraine, and in Western Russia. This area was called the Jewish Pale. And the heart of it, I actually drew it a little bit too far east. The heart of it is, I stuck the rivers. So in this area, you have most of the world's Jews. Between Berlin and Moscow, you have most of the world's Jews. So many of them end up under Russian rule after the Napoleonic Wars. The Tsar of Russia, the Caesar of Russia, the Emperor of Russia, has fearsome troops called Cossacks. These are horsemen. They have some Mongol blood. They have some Turkish blood. They're the descendants of freebooters, land pirates. And the Cossacks are the best cavalry in the northern Asian steppes. They're like the Apaches of Europe and Western Asia. And the Apaches are amazing warriors and amazing horsemen, if you know anything about them. So the Cossacks work for the Tsar. They're his elite troops. They come in with sabers and they knock heads in terms of policing, and they also are elite units in war. So when the Cossacks want to when the Tsar wants to reward the Cossacks, what he will do is he will grant them a pogrom. The Cossacks will start on one end of the Pale and sweep to the other end. Every Jewish shtetl, that's a Jewish rural ghetto, it's a little Jewish village outside of the Russian village. The Cossacks will ride in, shooting, slashing, burning, just for the fun of it, like they're drunk on blood and lust. And many of them are drunk on alcohol, too. They rape, they murder, they steal, they burn, they do as much damage as they can. This is the violence of red rage. Ah! And the Cossacks, being warriors, they live in this kind of rage. And the Tsar has given them this. Who's going to stop the Cossacks when they start a pogrom? If the Tsar gave them permission, no police force is going to stop them. Besides, only an idiot would get between a Cossack and their prey. Because the Cossacks, after they start getting fierce, they don't really distinguish too much between friend and foe. Do not get between a Cossack and his prey. Yes?
Does that mean that, because the police can't stop the Cossacks or whatever, does that mean that it only stops and there are no more Jews or when they get tired of it?
When they get tired of it. The Tsar would give them a license to have a pogrom for like 3 months. That's usually about the longest. And so they go from village and village, town to town. They don't kill all the Jews. That's not their purpose. Their purpose is to be sadistic, to punish them. Remember, one of the anti-Semitic things that Christians pick up on is the notion that all Jews bear responsibility somehow for the execution of Jesus Christ. Now, it is true, and you'll study this, that Jesus was killed because of a conspiracy among the Jewish priests. But most people don't believe in hereditary guilt. except when it comes to the Jews. They're Christ killers. So the Cossacks are given license to kill the Jews or to hurt the Jews or to punish the Jews for being Jews because don't you know all Jews are Christ killers? You see how this works? You have half ideas that feed into the hatred as justification. All racism has this. The racism of the Ku Klux Klan has the same thing. The racism of modern Antifa against white people has this. There is all sorts of pseudo reason associated with these events. So a pogrom is a hot riot that can last for weeks or months. But in one area, usually it's just a few days, and then they move on. Now, in modern times, after World War I, Hitler has been plucking the Jews from German society like, what is it? Bonsai trees. The Japanese have a way of shaping plants into predetermined sculptural shapes. It's not topiary, I don't think. Does anyone know? I think they use bonsai trees too.
I don't know what the term for it is, but I do know what they do is when the tree is very small, what they do is they slowly morph it into a shape by trimming in certain ways, and then it continues to grow inside that shape because it becomes familiar.
Right.
And that's how it remembers to grow.
Right. And what Hitler and his people tell themselves is we're doing that with the German people. We are stripping them of their Jewish taint. So, okay. In November of 1938, there is the anniversary of a particular event. You'll learn about it next year if you have me. You'll learn about it anyway. It's called the Beer Hall Putsch. Hitler tries taking over Germany by force in 1923. He fails terribly. But every year around November 11th, he and the Nazis celebrate the Beer Hall Putsch as at least a chance for the old folk comrades to get together and, drink beer and sing songs and be happy Nazis together. Well, this year, as the anniversary approached, a Jew in Paris killed a German diplomat. And it was an excuse for Hitler to try a pogrom in Germany. Now, Germany, like all nations, like all countries, has certain cultural realities. This isn't racist, it's cultural truths. Now, there are people who live despite these truths. There are people who live against these stereotypes. But Germans tend to be very orderly people. They tend to be very disciplined people. They tend to want everything in order. Suddenly, as sunset occurs around Germany, fires begin sprouting out near every Jewish community in the entire country. Local Gauleiters, or Nazi leaders, begin to gather people for a mass meeting. The fires are fed by Jewish books by Jewish authors. And the Nazi leadership these leaders in these neighborhoods begin working the crowd into a frothing rage. And then they are set loose. It's called Kristallnacht, the night of broken glass, because the mobs, again, like Antifa, but with different goals, just suddenly find these piles of bricks, and they throw them through the windows of every Jewish business and every Jewish home. Then they go into the businesses and loot them. Then they say to the Jews in their homes, "Men, you get out here. If you don't come out here, you know what? We're coming in anyway." Bush. And so the Jewish homes have these rioters inside of them, and the men are dragged out and beaten and taken away. And if anyone fights, blood's going to be spilled. The next morning, piles of smoke are over every community, rural and urban, that has Jews, because the synagogues are burned to the ground. It's one of the 2 times that the German people said no to Hitler. Through the women, the hausfraus, the housewives. The communities let the Nazi leaders' wives know, who let the Nazi leaders know, this is not inordinate, this is not orderly, this is not German. My children had to smell the smoke of a burning synagogue. My children, innocent children, looked outside the street and watched people beat on Jews. No, never again. And Hitler backs off. The German people stand up to him through this campaign of women, and Hitler backs off. He never does that again. From now on, everything he's going to do with the Jews is going to be behind closed doors. It's going to be behind a veil of plausible deniability. And that's where we will leave things today, behind a veil of plausible deniability. He may not live. Okay, I'm going to be stopping the live stream and the video. People should clear everything off their desks and spread out because you're going to be taking a quiz.
Ooh, yay.